All right, we're just getting launched. Obviously, I got to launch on Instagram here, and then we will be good to go. Mic check, 1, 2, 3. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. I just want to make sure we're working and we're operational, and then of course we can get straight into it. I'm talking on Instagram, so all right. I'm gonna get started in about 30 seconds. So if you're just getting in, just get comfortable and be ready. Honestly, take notes because if this was a university lecture, I'd be making good money off this. I'm about to change your whole view of reality, and that's exactly the topic of today. So without further ado, you guys know who I am. My name is Caleb Schilke. I'm the host, the founder of Ascend, and the Ascended podcast. Everything we do here in our community, which is about waking you guys up, exposing truth, and figuring out how to make as much money with that truth and as much impact in your life as possible. But it all starts from paying fucking attention. If you guys have been waiting all day for the podcast, well, we're here again. We're ready to get back into it. All right. TikTok, welcome in, guys. Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, whoever is watching here. Once again, just dial in because we're about to get started. I'm going to make sure my lighting is good here. Ooh. There we go. It's pretty good. You guys can see me, right? I'm going to mute my phone too. One time I had this woman texting me throughout my stream yesterday, and she was mad at me actually because I had to call her out on something. And sometimes, guys, you got to stand on business. Sometimes it doesn't feel good to be grounded, to be a masculine presence. And sometimes you have to just take shit. Sometimes you got to bear through the storm. Again, masculine energy is calm, it's grounded. Female energy is more chaotic, right? It's the yin and the yang. They balance each other out. And sometimes that means not, having to fight for yourself, but it means just being present for the other person. I was trying to do that yesterday. Unfortunately, it just made him more mad at me, but keep your control, keep your power, keep your respect as a man, and other people will notice that presence and that value. You just got to hope that people are mature enough and around it long enough to really think critically and to see that. Here we go. I'm nervous. This is going to be a big one. There are two versions of reality. One of them, the inheritors, the controllers, the ones operating behind the curtain. And one for us, the ordinary people told to play by the rules. If you're listening to this, you already sense that something is wrong with the story we've been fed. You feel it every time you grind away, following the standard advice. Go to school, get a job, save a little money. Yet you see others seemingly float upwards with ease, riding on invisible escalators of privilege. This uncomfortable truth is that the game isn't unfair because you're unlucky or you're lazy. The game isn't unfair. You're just underinformed. We were never given the playbook that the elites use. Today, we're cracking open the secret vault. Welcome to Syndicate Insider Knowledge. Of course, I'm the owner and founder and runner of the Digital Syndicate, a private community of people that are dedicated to understanding how the world actually works and leveraging those secrets to grow infinitely wealthy and powerful. And we make so much money all the time inside of this community. But today, I want to pull back the veil on what I call the hidden architecture of wealth, something I do regularly in the Syndicate, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to see behind the curtain of what we do. The trusts, the foundations, or the dynastic plans that silently keep power in the same hands generation after generation. We'll expose why wealth in the modern world isn't just made, it's moved and protected by design. We'll uncover why the school system was never intended to teach you real leverage or sovereignty. We'll expose the concept of the invisible class mobility, a fancy way of saying power has been passed down privately for centuries, while the rest of us play musical chairs. Most importantly, we'll talk about what this means for you, a young man or woman hungry to build generational value from scratch, and give you a few probably practical moves to start leveling the playing field immediately. By the end of this, you should feel like you've broken into the vault, stealing secrets that weren't meant for you. And that's how I feel even being here today. I feel like I'm doing something illegal, but I'm not. I'm just talking about the reality of the world, something that most people never have the opportunity to experience. And I'm blessed to be awakened to it. So strap in. This isn't your typical motivational fluff or mainstream finance 101. This is syndicate level intel. And if you swipe off, if you don't treat it like private classified information, even though it isn't, like, it's not going to really change your worldview. You're just going to say, that's a cool theory. If you actually put it to work, it will change your entire perception of what life is. Be sharp, be serious, engaged. This kind of insight gets clipped and shared in the corners of the internet where hungry minds gather. If that's you, get ready, because we're about to rewrite the rules. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, we have to expose the system. As much as I don't want to challenge the system and how much it's going to hate me for doing it or punish me for doing it, here I am. Picture the wealthiest people and families in the world. We're often told a simple story. They or their ancestors worked hard. They built a business. They made a fortune. But that's only the glossy public chapter. The real story is what happened after the fortune was made. They didn't just get rich. They kept rich. Wealth isn't merely earned, it's structured and it's shielded. There's an entire hidden architecture that ensures money stays within a select circle, growing and quietly passing on, often untouched by the kinds of taxes and risks that you and I take for granted. Let's talk about trust, one of the crown jewels of this hidden architecture. A trust, by definition, is a legal entity that holds assets for the benefit of certain people, often family members, managed by trustees. Sounds innocent enough until you realize how the ultra rich weaponize trust to achieve a form of financial immortality. There's a particular vehicle called a dynasty trust, which you should damn well be familiar with if you're not. And it's intended to lock up wealth for multiple generations, potentially forever. If designed correctly, assets in a dynasty trust can grow and be passed down without ever being hit by estate or inheritance taxes. Think about that. Most of us worry about a 40% estate tax hitting whenever we leave to our kids. Meanwhile, a billionaire can tuck his fortune into a dynasty trust and he can ensure his great-great-grandchildren inherit the entire fucking pie. Tax-free. In fact, if you put a modest $1 million into a dynasty trust and let it grow at 6% for 300 years, which has been what's happening, it could theoretically swell to about $39 trillion, roughly half the world's GDP, without the IRS touching a penny. $39 trillion over 300 years of generational family wealth for something to sit in a trust, not be taxed, and you pass it on. How does this benefit certain people? It sounds absurd, right? But maybe that's exactly how these trusts are marketed to the elite. Pay once, then let your wealth compound outside the system indefinitely. As one report put it, this is accelerating a widening chasm between the poor and the extremely rich. Where does this come from, Caleb? Well, it comes from inequality.org. Find me a more credible source. Let's give you a real example. The Mars family. The billionaires behind Mars Incorporated, right? Think M&M's and Milky Way, right? All your favorite candy companies. They have apparently avoided estate taxes for generations through careful trust planning. Each Mars heirs today is worth roughly the same astronomical sum, can't speak, split neatly as if by an invisible hand. There's no coincidence. It's likely the result of a dynastic trust being set up decades ago. It's cascading, right, their wealth down the bloodline in equal portions, bypassing the taxes that should have been applied at each death. They didn't make so much new money, guys. They weren't just really lucky. They just inherited and protected old money. Step one of being rich and powerful as fuck. And let's not just look at trusts. Let's look at private foundations and multi-layered corporate entities, the foundations and facades of dynastic wealth. A private family foundation is often sold as a charitable vehicle. Think of maybe a Microsoft founder who has a foundation, but it also doubles as a tax shelter and control mechanism. The ultra wealthy donate assets like stocks, real estate, art to their own foundation, scoring huge tax deductions up front because they're donating them, even though they own and control what happens with them. They can put them in their house, but the foundation owns them. They often keep those assets under their influence with minimal public benefit. Collectively, the US private foundations hold over $1 trillion of our assets. An enormous shadow economy of wealth. There's something happening. The rich get to appear benevolent while effectively continuing to own and direct their fortune through the foundation, often staffed by their family members on a very nice salary, by the way. As one investigative report noted, many foundations give the public only a token access or benefit, just enough to justify the tax breaks, while the family enjoys the real perks behind closed doors. So it's like, I put this $5 million piece of art that I could write off on taxes instead of paying taxes on $5 million, and it sits in my living room. But because I hosted one public event at my house, I benefited the public, even though the rest of the 364 days that $5 million art piece gets to sit in my living room and look pretty. Yeah, it's a simple bargain. You get the tax breaks and the halo effect of being this good philanthropist. Their charity often amounts to assets staying in the private vault with the family name on the door of it. Then we have webs of holding companies, LLCs, and offshore accounts. I am personally guilty of this. I have my own holding companies and LLCs. I don't own anything. Like, I guess I own my own personal property, right? But the important things are held by my business, which is held by a holding company that my name's not on. This is just the bare minimum of getting into this structure, by the way. This is a multi-layered corporate structure designed to hide wealth and minimize my liability. The Pandora Papers, which was a massive leak of financial secrets, shocked a lot of people a couple of years back. It revealed how world leaders and billionaires hide fortunes in networks of shell companies and trusts. It exposed that even within the United States, certain states like South Dakota, Delaware, Nevada, Alaska, and others have basically become domestic tax havens. Thanks to intentionally lax trust laws in those specific states that I mentioned, anyone's money, from legit billionaires to dirty money, can be tucked away with astounding secrecy and protection. By 2022, the US actually ranked #1 in the world for financial secrecy. Yes, above the Swiss and Caribbean islands because of these state-level laws catering to hidden wealth. It comes from ggU.edu. In other words, America publicly condemns offshore evasion, but quietly becomes the safest place to stash cash unseen. So when you watch The Wolf of Wall Street, right, when they're wrapping cash bundles to Margot Robbie, they would have been better keeping that shit in the US. They wouldn't have found it as easily as they would in Switzerland. Again, I'm not condoning this. This isn't legal advice and it's not my opinion. I'm just saying that's the facts of it. The top 1% have sidestepped an estimated $163 billion in taxes every year, just the 1%, through complex architectures of trusts, shell companies, and loophole-ridden transactions orchestrated by pricey lawyers and accountants, which again are a tax write-off. So why not use them? The 400 richest families in the US pay an effective tax rate of about 8.2%. 8.2%. Lower than your average school teacher pays. Because of this game, are you beginning to see the pattern? The rules that you think are set in stone, taxes, laws, etc., become malleable if you have the knowledge and capital to exploit the cracks. The elites hire veritable wealth defense industry to do this, an army of planners who make sure that the fortress is secure because there's money in it to doing so. Let's say you make $1 billion in a year, which is not unheard of for the ultra rich, right? The 1%. If you make $1 billion a year and you can go from 15% tax, which is 150 million of that, to 8% tax, which is 80 million, you effectively saved $70 million. It's worth paying $10 million for an attorney to do that. And obviously you're going to get way better advice than just looking up irs.gov that the average person has to do and just guess, maybe use TurboTax, right? We also need to talk about old money and dynasties openly. America loves the rags to riches narrative, but it rarely acknowledges its entrenched aristocracy. The truth is that class mobility is far more frozen than we're told. The American dream is not what we're told. One analysis found that more than half of the 50 wealthiest families in the US in 2020, again, more than 50, half of the 50 wealthiest families here, were the exact same families at the top in 1983. Nearly 40 years, and the names didn't change. I see the names in front of me. They're in my notes. I fear for my life, and I'm not going to read them off. The list goes on, though. And these dynasties didn't just hold their ground. They multiplied their fortunes at jaw-dropping rates. The 5 richest families saw their wealth grow over 2,000%. That's 20 times. 20 times! Since the early 1980s. This is not stock-picking genius or sheer hard work. That's the power of owning capital across generations, tax-advantaged and compounded. Well, you guys are told, put down $30 a month, and maybe if you're lucky with inflation, you'll hit $600,000. You can get a house, you can keep the lights on, you can pay for more expensive fucking eggs week by week. Sure, yeah. Maybe you'll survive. You could, if you die before 90, you'll probably be all right. You probably won't have to work again. Meanwhile, the rich make 20 times that just by a legal structure that they can afford to that you can't. Yeah, and then they pretend to be your heroes. There's only a handful of new money names that cracked into the elite circle over decades. The reality is American aristocracy existing in parallel to the America that we live in, that we're told is working for us. And again, I love this country. I'm military. I don't hold views that, these are not any official views that I link with my military. These are just a private citizen speaking up. And I have the right to do that. They may not have noble titles, but they have something more concrete. Assets and influence are passed down like crown jewels. As early as 1814, a guy you've heard of, John Adams, observed that whenever society allows property to concentrate, aka things to get really, congested by the 1%, accumulations of it will be made. The snowball will grow as it rolls. He was describing precisely, basically, how wealth naturally piles up in dynasties. And we've been watching that snowball grow bigger and bigger and bigger in our time. Crucially, it's not only money that gets passed down, though. It's access, it's knowledge and networks. And that's what you need to be paying attention to. Power is often handed off quietly. It's a phone call to get a son in the right university, or a scandalous donation, as in the college admissions scandal. A cushy job creating at a dad's friend's investment firm. An art of networking that ensures the families young never have to start at the bottom. Today we chuckle at the phrase Nepo baby, right? But the children of the rich, just coasting on in their lineage, but it's deadly serious evidence of how meritocracy gets subverted. Nepotism is everywhere that power is. That comes from nakedcapital.com. That's not my quote. From Hollywood to Wall Street to Capitol Hill, a disproportionate number of successful are the sons, daughters, or close contacts to those already in power. One commenter quipped that the elite have been very adept at making sure no one outside their class is welcome, even in entry-level roles across many industries. Think about that. Even the entry doors, even though getting in the door is being guarded. It's not that no outsiders ever get in, but the deck is stacked heavily in favor of insiders. So why would they want you? Legacy admissions in Ivy League schools, referrals and internships through family connections, all of it ensures that an elite kid who might be fucking average in talent still gets an above average shot at opportunities. Meanwhile, a genius born in a poor zip code has to move mountains to reach the same doors. As the surge of exposes on nepo babies, right? These like gliding in life children has laid bare, their very ubiquity exposes the myth of American meritocracy. In short, guys, to summarize, wealth and power move largely behind closed doors. Lesson one of the digital syndicate. Publicly, we celebrate that self-made entrepreneur, the prodigy who made it out of poverty. And sure, those stories are real. They do happen. But for every one of those, there are 100 wealthy heirs quietly receiving an invisible hand up. This invisible class mobility means that the movement we see, like someone rising to CEO or becoming a big name investor, often isn't as independent as it appears. There are invisible elevator cables pulling them up. That's the system as it exists. Trusts, foundations protecting the money, family names and networks protecting the access. And you guys are told, of course, right? The one person out of 1,000 that works their ass off is the story that's put all over the news, because that's what we want to enforce. But we don't show what's not happening, which is people just being handed these things that are less qualified than you are. Okay, here's the kicker. None of this is taught to the public, and that's why I'm here. It's not their interest for you to know. The inheritors and the gatekeepers operate in stealth while promoting a narrative to the masses that if you just hustle hard, save money, and follow the conventional path, you too can be just like them. It's a comforting lie. It keeps society calm and aspirational. But you can't play a game by the official rule book if the other side has hidden rules. So let's talk about why you never learned any of this in school, from mainstream sources, and why you were never meant to. This is the start of the real education. Now that you're aware of the problem, I want to give you a little context. So you can say you're not just crazy. And these are the facts that when you bring this up to people and they don't believe you, that I want you to give them. Let me take a sip. Give me 5 seconds. If you like it, if you guys heard anything I said, please like this. And it does help me get more people in here. Consider this. Why do you think topics like taxes, leverage, real estate law, or asset building are almost never taught in school? You know, it's practical. Why wouldn't they be teaching it? You can graduate high school knowing how to dissect a fucking frog, sure, or recite the quadratic formula, but not how to open an LLC, optimize your taxes, or understand the basics of trust law. Is that an accident? What do you think? Or is it by design? Let's delve a little bit into history and some uncomfortable truths about the education system most of us grew up in. Over a century ago, bear with me, this is the short tale. Over a century ago, the truth that you never heard is this. Powerful industrialists like John D. Rockefeller took a keen interest in shaping public education. Rockefeller, one of the richest men in history, helped create the General Education Board in the early 1900s, funding and steering American schools. He's quoted often, infamously, as saying, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." Whether or not he said it in those exact words, it captures the ethos of what he and his peers were aiming for. They were building an industrial economy and needed reliable, obedient employees. Not too many independent thinkers or innovators rocking the boat. Standardized curriculum, rote learning, and the suppression of critical thought in education all served a purpose: to mold a compliant workforce. Sit up in your straight, nice neat rows of desks, rows and columns. Walk up to the board. Don't talk back. Raise your hand. Speak only when spoken to. One of Rockefeller's top advisors, Frederick T. Gates, wrote in 1913 about his ideal vision for schooling rural children. And it's chilling. "In our dream," he wrote, "the people yield themselves with perfect docility to our molding hand. We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning or science, nor lawyers, doctors, preachers, statesmen, of whom we know now have ample supply." Did you catch that? They explicitly did not want to create too many educated, ambitious leaders from the masses. They wanted docile workers, minds not high things, but condensed, basically, condescend to men of low degree. They want to keep you down, basically meaning, as Gates quoted the Bible. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It wasn't. It was just written in black and white by a man who helped design the American education machine. The system was set up to teach you your place in the order, not know how to transcend it, to ascend it. Had to drop the brand name there. Let's fast forward to today. The overt industrialist agenda may not be openly discussed, but the structure remains. As one financial commenter noted in 2025, here we are in 2025 and nothing has changed. Students still graduate without learning about taxes, investments, or how to build wealth. Why? Well, schools are designed to create employees, not financially independent individuals. This is in 2025. Does that not sound exactly the same as in the 1800s when they, set this up? That's a recent quote and it hits the mark. The curriculum pushes you to become a good little cog in someone else's machine. Get good grades, get into college, then get a good job. We're effectively trained to be leveraged by others, employers, corporations, the government, not to create leverage for ourselves. Schools rarely teach about investing, entrepreneurship, or real asset accumulation because that knowledge makes individuals more independent. And independence is not what the system was built to foster. It was built to foster dependence on wages, on the next promotion, on the system's validation. Sound familiar, guys? Is any of this making sense? Any of it? What are your goals? Train of thoughts asked. What are my goals? Well, look in my bio. I'm here to educate you guys. Everything I do is about education. You can have the opportunity to do that for free. You can make money with it. You can pay me to educate you, right? I'm not here to not make money, but I'm just very clear that my offer is in my bio. I have a paid community. I also have a free community. So if you guys think I'm hiding anything from you, I'm not. The price tag's right in front of you, and you can go check it out. There's also a free community to learn how to do some of this stuff if you're brand new, because I don't believe in making you climb uphill like I had to. If you think this is overtly cynical, consider who benefits from an economically ignorant populace. Guys, we're not just economically ignorant now. Look how many people are just ignorant in general. The banks profit when young adults rack up credit card debt and student loans without understanding interest. Big companies profit when laborers focus on steady paychecks rather than equality or ownership stakes. The government maintains order when people follow the conventional paths, pay their taxes without question, never learning the loopholes, and don't agitate for structural change. As the same commenter pointed out, if schools don't teach financial literacy, someone benefits from that ignorance. Banks make money from high interest loans, loan sharks profit, employers gain when workers remain dependent on a paycheck. That's the quote. It's a harsh statement, but think about it. A financially savvy, entrepreneurial, leverage-wielding young population would be much harder for the existing power structure to control or exploit. A financially educated person is harder to exploit, as they put it. They never understand how money works. That kind of knowledge shifts power away from those who profit from financial dependence and those who made the system. Exactly. True financial and strategic education is empowering, and it's kept scarce, almost like occult knowledge reserved for initiates. And that is why I do what I do, because I don't believe in fucking doing that anymore. I'd rather have you guys have education. I'd rather we work together and build our own fucking system that isn't like this, because this pisses me off. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to skip down to this. The mainstream narrative also instills psychological conditioning, meritocracy, the American dream. Work hard and you'll rise to the top. And hard work is important, but meritocracy has limits when the playing field is rigged. The system doesn't want you to see those limits. We're told success is about an individual effort, so if you don't make it big, you blame yourself and not the structure. This keeps people chasing and hoping rather than questioning why. For example, the top 0.1% keep pulling away in wealth even as everyone works harder every year. It's not popular to teach, well, 70% of you are going to remain in the class you were born in because the game is structurally stacked. Nobody wants to hear that. Instead, they dangle anecdotes of a kid from the projects who became a millionaire athlete or the working class hero who founded a startup. Exceptions that prove the rule. Meanwhile, the more common story that the upper class largely reproduces itself is brushed aside or attributed to their superior work ethic or their talent. It's a soothing lie to keep society from getting restless. And think about leverage, one of the most important concepts in wealth building. Do schools teach you how to leverage? Quite the opposite. They teach you how to be leveraged by a boss. The whole 9 to 5, one paycheck at a time life is the epitome of an unleveraged existence. You are literally trading time for money, and you're not trading your money for other people's time and money. It takes leverage to make money. It doesn't take money to make money. But did anyone ever teach you about leverage in high school? Did they mention that owning equity like shares in a business is how almost all wealth is built? Whereas wages alone never make anyone rich. No, because that knowledge is dangerous in the wrong hands. If every bright young kid came out aiming to own assets and use leverage appropriately and intelligently, who would be left to hire as the compliant worker? The system needs a large base of people who never realize this. And that's why it's out there so they can say it is, but it's never pushed. Guys, it makes me sad to talk about this. This is honestly, it cost me, like, not only just challenging the system and putting myself out there as a threat, but it just takes a toll on me to talk about how sad this shit is, especially that you guys don't even believe me. Now, I'm not just here to rant that the system is evil, right? I'm not just here to make you feel powerless. Quite the opposite. The message is simple. Since you now recognize these hidden rules, and there's many more, a lot of them are in the Syndicate, right? And the intentional lack of education, you can choose to break out of the internal chaos and the mental cage. Realize that not knowing was always part of the plan. And you didn't choose that. You just would have wished the school system taught you properly. That's not your fault, guys. So don't blame yourselves. Be pissed off at the people who made it that way. That's what I would do. And take it upon yourself to gather as much knowledge as possible. You're doing it the right way by listening to this. You're literally re-educating yourself in spite of what the official curriculum omitted. That's the first step toward liberation and true power. And I would say most of the stuff that's banned is probably the real truth. I almost look for that, guys. I'm like, well, this shit's way too in my face. It's got to not be true. Whatever, because if so much can be manipulated, then whatever they're telling you is the good thing for you is probably the opposite. It's probably actually opposite day most places. So given this, what can you do about it? If you're a young man starting from scratch, maybe just with no family connections or seed money, how do you legally, tactically, intelligently start to become and build true leverage and perhaps even generational wealth? How do you play catch up in a game that others started playing before they were even born, before their families for the last 250 years have been building? Well, you don't. Not with the education and knowledge you have right now. That's what we're going to dive into next. I'm not going to pretend it's easy or that there's a magic formula, but I will tell you this. The real separator in this game isn't just hustle or talent or even luck. It's knowledge and strategy. Access to the right knowledge applied with discipline is what can set you apart more than an extra 10 hours of grinding or another motivational quote. So let's arm you with some of that knowledge right now after one sip. Ready? Enough theory and diagnosis. Let's take action. Let's do it. What can you do starting immediately to begin building toward leverage and long-term wealth? Even if you're not a trust fund baby and you're operating with modest resources, here are the 3 practical moves. Syndicate secrets, if you will, that we teach that you can implement. These are about working smarter within the system and using the same principles that the elites use, but legally and honestly ethically, to elevate your own position. Think of yourself like a modern day Robin Hood. Think of them as your footholds in that tall ladder. First, I want you guys to master things that you probably aren't going to think are important. And I'm going to tell you what the first ones are. Trusts and entity structures. Those terms are foreign to you. But I'm going to tell you, and they seem like just a rich tool, right? That's on purpose. You're going to say, well, that doesn't apply to me. It does, because you've been taught that it shouldn't, because you're not in the 1%. Do you see how your view of reality is being reconstructed in front of you? Yeah. You might be thinking trusts, estate planning. Isn't that just for old rich guys? That mindset, again, is exactly what keeps people from utilizing these tools early. You want to learn the basics of trust law and corporate structures now, not when you're 60. Because understanding these mechanisms change how you accumulate and hold wealth from the get-go. Even if you're still in wealth building mode, structuring things the right way can save you massive taxes and headaches down the road. And it signals that you're playing the long game. You're not just looking at next month. So start with something accessible, a basic living trust or a holding company like I have. If you have any assets at all, even just a house, a small business, a car, a computer, look at putting them into a revocable living trust or an LLC. This isn't about hiding from taxes. A living trust won't charge you income taxes. It's about getting familiar with the concept of separating you from assets. Think about people. I think about companies like people. I'm giving this to my company. My company is technically a person. Now it can loan me my computer. My company is basically, it's controlled by my mind because I own it. But I could use the computer because it's very generous because it's also me. But technically, if anybody asks me, the company owns it. I don't own it. You have to get comfortable with that separation. You don't want to own as much as possible because the more you own, the more can be taken from you. And the more can be taxed, the more can be charged by the system. And why are you just saying, well, that's my moral obligation? If the rich people are doing it and we want to challenge them, that's exactly what the fuck we're going to do too. The wealthy never keep their assets in their own personal name if they can help it. They hold everything in entities or trusts because it provides legal protection and flexibility. If you get into a legal dispute or incur liability, having assets in properly structured entity can shield you. It also makes it easier to transfer those assets in the future without bureaucratic red tape or big tax events. Even if you're young, set up the chessboard for your future family. You don't need millions to start thinking this way. As your wealth grows, and it will because you're going to make it grow, especially being in the syndicate, you can get more sophisticated. For instance, learn about the concept of a dynasty trust. We talked about how the ultra rich use them to skip taxes for generations. Now, you might not have an estate anywhere near taxable right now, but gaining knowledge of how dynasty trusts work mean that when you do accumulate significant access and assets, especially in the syndicate, guys, we're going to show you how to leverage AI to make a shit ton of money in 2025 by creating leverage and not doing all this work yourself. You're going to know how to shelter and pass on the money without the usual 40% haircut from Uncle Sam. There are jurisdictions in the US like South Dakota, Nevada, Delaware that have extremely friendly laws for those long-term trusts. Keep those in your back pocket. You don't have to be a lawyer and accountant, guys, but dedicate some time to self-educate or use our education on trust and tax strategy fundamentals. There are plenty of resources out there. Make it a goal within the next year. You're just going to read at least one big, good book on course wealth structuring, like Rich Dad's Advisors or series on OPMs and entities or whatever. Materials by estate attorneys who write for laymen, right? These rich guy attorneys who've been like, you know what, maybe I should help other people. And they put it in common language. Also consider forming a business entity for your hustles. Guys, make an LLC. There's all this talk of like, don't make an LLC until you're making money. Now, I've even said this myself, but I would say that if you're going to be buying a lot of stuff or investing in a computer, even this room I'm sitting in is a tax write-off. It's part of my apartment, but I've written off like 20% of my rent because it's a 2-bedroom apartment and this is a bedroom. I've written that off on my rent. I save 20% of my rent. I get back on my taxes because this is an office space. I don't make money directly with this room, but I didn't make money for the first year starting with my business, but I saved that money on my job taxes. It all overlaps when it's linked to your own tax structure. So if you're working a job right now or making money, that money can come back to you even if it's not related to what you're working on for a business. You guys get that? So if you plan to invest in real estate, for instance, learn about an LLC per property or holding an LLC that owns sub-LLCs, a structure to protect you if one goes south. It's about creating leverage through legal structures. You can leverage tax laws, business deductions, lower tax rates on certain entity types, leverage liability protection. Your company gets sued and not you personally, and even leverage perception. An entrepreneur operating through a company is taken more serious than a guy doing everything in his own name. There's so many benefits to having an LLC. The rich people will tell you not to get one because they don't want you competing with them. The wealthy love using what's called family offices, which is essentially private companies that manage their assets. Why not begin to act as your own mini family office right now? even if you're the only member. It sets a tone. You're not just scrambling to make a buck, you're building a fortress to keep it. And honestly, I would say set up the LLC first. Pay $200, write off every fucking thing on tax, write off your mouse, write off your computer, anything you use for that work. Your phone bill. I save 20, 30% of my phone bill because I write it off on taxes. Even if the rest of the time I'm watching Tung Tung Saur, I'm still saving money on my phone bill. Okay? And it's to drive the point home. Think of just learning these entities as rules of chess in a game where the only people know how to take, multiple steps at a time are the rich people. And so why not start playing their game too? Because you deserve to. The second thing and point I'm going to make is leverage geography and sovereignty. We live in a globalized world. And by globalized, if you don't know what that means, it just means we're interconnected. Companies and countries depend on each other to survive now. It's not just one country as its own thing. Most people still operate with a local mindset, though. The ultra wealthy don't. They think and act planet-wide. One of the biggest strategic moves you can make is to break out of the one country, one option mentality. I love the US. I serve in the military. But the US isn't everything. The US is one of the best, if not the best country in the world, in my opinion. But does that mean you have to stay here? No, you can go travel whenever you want. You can invest in other things if you want. You just have to do it legally. Specifically, consider obtaining a second passport or an alternative residency and learn how to arbitrage different countries' systems to your advantage, something we do teach in the Syndicate. This isn't as far-fetched or out of reach as it sounds. You're not like escaping the government. You're just leveraging systems that you can have. And it's something many ambitious individuals are pursuing for a reason. For example, if you live in Dubai, there's something called the Foreign Exclusion Income Tax law or whatever, that you can write off. I think right now it's $120,000 of your income. If you live in Dubai and you're a US citizen, you can knock down $120,000 a year on your US income tax because you're out of the country. And Dubai doesn't have taxes. So move to Dubai, save a lot of money on your taxes. That's what I'd recommend, guys, if you're making that much money. Very easy way, right? Why a second passport, though? Why is that such a big thing? Because it gives you leverage against any single government or system. If country A turns hostile to entrepreneurs, like high tax, regulation, instability, you can have country B in your back pocket. Mobility is power. The ultra high net worth individuals have caught onto this. The golden visas and second passports have become essential tools for safeguarding wealth, optimizing tax exposure, and ensuring personal freedom. It comes from entrepreneur.com. This isn't just hype. Countries like Portugal, Malta, St. Kitts, and Nevis, and even UAE or Singapore offer various programs that grant residency or citizenship in exchange for any investment and recognition of talent as well. The rich are using these to essentially go borderless with their money. They'll live in one place, they'll bank in another, they'll invest in another, and they'll hold a passport for a rainy day jurisdiction. It's geo arbitrage, using the differences between countries' laws to benefit yourself. Guys, even if it's as simple as going to Thailand for a year and having an online business where your average total expenses for a really nice life is like $1,500, where in Miami it would be $10,000. That's how you stack wealth, because you're arbitraging the economies and the opportunities of different places. And it's not like as different and distant as a thing as you guys think. If you work for 6 months and save up like $500, then you could go to Thailand for, and have a really nice lifestyle for 3 months or so. And that could be time to build that business, right? Maybe you're building it during that 6 months when you're saving up money, and you need that 3 months to get settled in and to really dial in, day to day for 40 hours a week and grow this shit. And from there, basically, you stay there. And it's $1,500 a month. You work the next couple of years, we're making 10 to 30 grand a month, which happens in our syndicate. And boom, you can now go wherever you want in the world, and you're not subject to one country's systems. It's that simple. Educate yourself in international banking and corporations. Could you incorporate your business in a jurisdiction that offers better tax treatment? This has to be done carefully and legally. You usually need genuine operations in a place to get the benefits, but it's worth knowing. Plenty of entrepreneurs legally incorporate in, say, Delaware or Wyoming for US, or in Singapore or Dubai for international ventures, because the environment is way more favorable. We're not talking about shady tax evasion. We're talking about tax optimization. The elites do it all the time, and it's legal. By shifting where income is recognized or where a country and company is domiciled, they can cut tax rates significantly. For example, if you run an online business from no tax Dubai or move your stock trading into a brokerage account in a country with no capital gains tax, those options really only open up to you if you break out of the mindset that you have to do everything in the country you were born in. And again, I'm not saying that the US is a bad country. I am not. 100%. I think we're great. We have a lot of great tax systems to use. I'm just saying that, like, get into the mindset of having multiple opportunities exist for you guys. This isn't just theory, it's happening at just the highest levels. Yeah. Why do you think so many billionaires quietly get New Zealand or Caribbean citizenships? It's not like they like the beaches, right? Or the big ass spiders in New Zealand. It's it can be a perk though if you like sitting on the beach, but it's a hedge against uncertainty. They can get on a plane and go to New Zealand on a whim's notice, and they're welcoming home those people. So, yeah, I'm not going to say you should go get a second citizenship today. Most of you are still working a 9 to 5, but be aware that these are things that are happening all the time. And if you say that that's too distant of a life that you want, then you've automatically just shut off any energy or frequencies that can direct you in that direction. And it's very much so a trap. You don't understand that the things you think and your perceptions of reality will very much so shape your reality. And if you don't think that this can apply to you, I didn't think this podcast was something I could do. 6 months later, here I am. I was literally just some guy in a camera sitting in his underwear on the couch, like, I should do this. And here I am. Like, it's really that simple. Sovereignty isn't about money. It's about your personal freedom and flexibility. The more optionality you have in where you live, you work, and keep your assets, the harder it is for one system to pin you down. That's why we stream on YouTube, Instagram, Rumble, TikTok. The elites achieve that by effectively becoming citizens of the world with multiple flags planted. You can start your journey to do the same. That's all I'm going to say. And then finally, I think the last point I want to make is number 3, build alliances and OPM. You've heard the term OPM if you're an investor. That's other people's money. Scaling without dilution. No man is an island, and no one becomes powerful purely solo. One of the least talked about but most critical ways and skills to make money is the ability to form strategic alliances and use other people's money to scale your vision without losing control. Why do you think people go on Shark Tank? They need 50 grand now, but it'll make them 500K in 6 months. They understand the risk, and they are taking an educated risk. The key phrase here is silent partners. These are partners or investors who contribute capital, resources, or connections, but don't interfere in your day-to-day decisions. It could just simply be your dad loaning you 5 grand to start your business. They enable you to do more than you could ever alone, yet you remain at the helm steering the ship. The elites have done this for ages. Think about it as leverage through networks. Now it's your turn to do it intelligently and ethically. If you have a business idea or a growing venture, realize you don't have to fund it 100% with your own cash, which is called bootstrapping, or do every bit of work yourself. In fact, insisting on I own 100% of nothing is fucking stupid. It's how many would-be moguls never take off. Strategic dilution, giving up a slice of equity or a cut of profits in exchange for a big boost, can be the difference between stagnation and explosive growth. Guys, Jeff Bezos owns a very small percentage of Amazon now. He obviously started with 100, but he used other people's money to grow a lot faster in his own lifetime, so it wouldn't have to last 5 generations. The trick is to structure the deal in your favor and keep silent partners silent in terms of control. For example, you might find an investor who believes in your idea and is willing to put $100,000 up to kickstart it in exchange for, say, a 20% equity stake but no voting rights, or a simple profit share agreement. They get a return on their money. You get to use capital that isn't yours to grow something yours. That's classic OPM and leverage. You've effectively multiplied your productive power without being an employee of someone else, and you're still the owner, just with a new resource infusion. And again, this isn't income that you have to pay taxes on. It's going as seed money to a business, and again, that money could be a write-off. Consider real estate as probably the best example of this. It's what most people do to get rich. Say you find a good property deal that requires $200,000 down. You only have $50,000. Instead of letting it go, you bring in 2 silent partners who each put up the 75 apiece, while you put up 50 to do all the active work of finding, managing, and maybe renovating the property. They're hands off, you're the active partner. You can structure it where you get a slightly larger share of the returns for being the operator. This is essentially how real estate syndications and many private deals work. One guy runs it, often with little of his own money in the deal, and then the passive investors will finance it. As long as incentives are aligned and they get a solid preferred return, for example, before you take a cut, then everyone wins. Silent partners supply the money, you supply the sweat and brains. A Yahoo Finance piece literally listed this as the top way to build wealth with other people's money because it's the most guaranteed. You're not fighting against the system online where a lot of online business is manipulated nowadays. And again, it doesn't have to be like a Mark Cuban funding your startup. It can be your father. It can be your friend. My father has loaned me money to start. I paid him back, and it's helped me grow. Like I said, hey, I need $200 here to run this ad. And I said, I'll pay you back next week. It can be as simple as that, guys. It doesn't even have to be this big documented thing. Just be a friend giving you $100 to put into something, right? Or it could be $5,000, 10 grand. The silent partner model isn't for real estate. It can apply to any business. Are you a good coder with a startup idea, but you don't have the money? Well, find a silent partner who just puts in seed money while you build the product out. Maybe an older executive who believes in tech, but doesn't have time to execute. Are you running a profitable small business that could expand with one more location? Instead of talking through an expensive ass loan, just find a retired entrepreneur who would invest for a fixed return and not a big ass bank loan. The point is just network relentlessly. That's why network matters, because you have access to people who can fund the ideas, where resources can complement your ambition. You become the ambitious person and you network yourself well as hell on LinkedIn or inside of the digital syndicate here in my bio, then you will find people. People will search you out and you can start any business you want. And especially using AI, which is a massively growing technology. So just ask, why would someone be a silent partner to you? What do you have to offer? Do you have the money, or do you have the ambition? Do you have the idea, or do you have the capital? You don't need both. And that's why you shouldn't get discouraged. Another angle to alliances is mentor relationships and gatekeepers. Usually the people with money are the people with experience that can give you pointers on how to set up the LLC better. Things like that, even though you still have the technical knowledge, or maybe you're just doing the legwork for them, just like in real estate. Their mentorship can shave years off your learning curve. That's leveraging their experience. And if they open a door for you, they connect you to an investor or endorse you for an opportunity, that can be life-changing. Always approach it as a two-way street. Figure out what you can offer them too, even if it's just loyalty, enthusiasm, or execution on their advice. Too many times I've seen people get rich just by finding a rich person and asking them what they can do for them. Because a lot of times they want to leverage themselves, right? They have too much money, they don't have enough help. And so if they find something for you to do, they will pay you for that. And they might even cut you in on deals. So just start connecting with as many rich people as you can find. They're on LinkedIn, they're in the digital syndicate, wherever. And cultivate a network of peers as hungry as you. Form your own mini syndicate, right? You can do that inside my actual digital syndicate. You can just find it online too, but share intel, split the cost of expensive learning resources, co-invest in small deals together. Think of it as building your personal consortium. One guy might be good at coding, right? Another good at marketing, another at finance. Together you could start a venture none of you could solo. That's exactly how we started the Ascend agency, where we just literally drop ship different AI products, and then we develop our own AI systems to help you sell things for your business in the DMs or close deals on Instagram while you sleep. It's pretty damn easy. I just had to find the people that could code it and make partnerships with them, cut them in, right? I chose not to be greedy and keep 100%, but now I get access to deals I wouldn't because I have a software that actually works. And I'm not still trying to figure out error codes on Zapier to make a system. I had to find people with knowledge because that's how you save time. And you can't be rich and young and handsome, right? If you can't leverage all three. So one more tip, guys, is just remembering that every major enterprise is built with other people's help and money. So it's an inevitability. You might want to do it all on yourself. You might want to play the big role of saying, I did this, but you still did it with other people's help, guys. Elon Musk didn't personally pay for all of Tesla or SpaceX. He convinced investors. The trick in your position is convincing folks on a smaller scale and making the proposition attractive while you steer. Elon Musk just got successful on a small venture, and then PayPal, right? And then he continued snowballing that to make it easier and easier to get money thrown at him. Here's what I'm doing. Here's the potential return on investment for you. And here's how you're protected or paid first. And here's why you don't have to worry about the day-to-day. If you can answer those questions, most people will give you their money. I will give you your money. Pitch your idea in the digital syndicate, and I'll probably help you guys out. To sum this up, leverage in the modern world means leveraging people, their money, their return, their time, their networks, not in an exploitative way like the systems I described, but in a synergetic way. Create situations where others profit from empowering you. That's what our affiliate program is. You guys make $500 by getting someone to click on our booking link, and we close the deal. We just need people to come our way. And if you share a link, which is in the free community, not the Syndicate. It's in the Syndicate too, but somebody clicks on that, you get $500 from sitting on your ass and sharing a link because you helped us out. And we want to show appreciation for that. Start forming your own syndicates. Even a band of 3 ambitious friends pooling $5,000 a piece to start a side hustle is a syndicate. Today, it's $15,000 in a dream. Tomorrow, who knows? It could be a $15 million fund you're running. Just think big. Start small and start. All right. We're here to wrap it up. And this is what I'm going to say here. We've covered a lot. The hidden architecture of wealth, the rigged educational mindset, and a few powerful tactics to start reclaiming leverage in your own life. At this point, you're probably feeling a mix of anger at the system, which I still am, excitement at the possibilities, and maybe a bit of overwhelm because you don't know what to do first or next. Good. That's what I was going for. That's exactly how you should feel because it means you're awake and it means you're thinking, which is more than can be said for the masses, content to play a rigged game blindly. Like most of the people have swiped off of this live stream. They're watching Rocket League or, again, more stupid memes. You've actually given a shit, which is showing trajectory toward that 1% for you actually making it into that new elite. Now it's time to channel all of that into a fire in your belly. The closing is a call to power, your power. I want you to understand this. The game is rigged. It is. But it's only rigged if you play by their rules. The inheritors, the gatekeepers, the architects of status quo, they thrive on you following their script. So don't. Leverage the loopholes in it and win because you understand how to beat it. Rewrite your own rules. You now know that knowledge is the real wealth multiplier, so start seeking it relentlessly. Operate in stealth mode if you must. Hide your identity, hide your browser tabs. You don't need to advertise to the world that you're making these moves. In fact, it's almost dangerous to. I'm in danger for saying this stuff online. Just quietly subvert every expectation society has for you. Every little thing, challenge it, and you start to realize how much shit is fucked up on purpose. They expect you to be another cog. Fine. Outwardly be polite. Calm cog while inwardly you're just building, right? You're crafting an engine of your own. They expect you to trade all your time for money. Fuck it. Fine. Trade some of it to pay the bills, but pour every extra ounce into building assets and systems that will outlast you. Move differently. Realize too that this isn't about hating them, right? Or dreaming some violent overthrow. Not at all. It's about outsmarting and outmaneuvering because that's how we prevent ourselves from becoming them. The elites don't care if you win, as long as you're not a threat to them. And the truth is, there's no zero sum here. By elevating yourself, you're not directly taking from someone else's slice, at least not until you're a billionaire going toe-to-toe with them, at which point, welcome to the club. What you're doing is refusing to be a pawn. You're choosing to become a player. Stay sharp intellectually and morally. We talked about doing this all legally and intelligently. This is important. I don't want you guys to confuse breaking the rules with breaking the law. We don't need to give any system an excuse to shut you down. I've been very careful. I've followed the limits of free speech that I can inhibit in my position with the government, and I haven't said anything illegal or challenged anything illegal or motivated you guys, hopefully, to do anything illegal. Everything I've described, trusts, second residences, partnerships, are completely legal. They're not just advertised to you. So no wonder you're not going to think that they're the best path forward. So walk the warrior's path with discipline. No whining, right? No victimhood. You just now see the board for what it is. You took the red pill because the red pill isn't some shitty misogynistic view of reality that people think Andrew Tate is promoting. No, it's just you realizing what's actually going on. And that's it. That's literally just it. You're realizing how things actually work. And this podcast did that. In the long run, a self-made man who masters these arts can absolutely fucking go toe-to-toe with a silver spoon dynasty. It happens. It happens more as information spreads. And speaking of spreading information, a word of caution, guys, not everyone here will appreciate you sharing or acting on this. Some people in your life are going to call you paranoid. My parents have for a bit. And then they started to realize what the fuck I was saying. They might call you greedy. They might just say, just be happy with the normal life, guys. Why the hell are you taking the red pill? That's fine for them. They're speaking from fear or conditioning because they don't want to challenge it. You will. You keep your vision. Please do that for me and do it for yourself. Content like this, like we discussed today, is somewhat against the grain. We essentially went public with secrets, our own digital syndicate secrets, some of many that we have. It might not last out here in the open. Maybe it gets shadow banned. Maybe it just gets drowned in the ocean of noise. We get 200 views on our videos for some fucking reason. I bet you could guess, but you heard it. And that cannot be taken away now. You're in the vault and you've seen what's inside. So use it. Stay lethal, stay intelligent, stay sovereign. Lethal in the sense of being effective and fearless, a force to be reckoned with in whatever field that you choose. Intelligent in your strategy. Think 3 steps ahead. Play chess while they play checkers. And sovereign in your life. Answerable to your own convictions and protected from the petty fucking tyrannies that ensnare lesser men. If you want to go further down the path, you guys aren't alone. There's a reason we call this syndicate knowledge, right? Syndicate, like funding coming together, syndicate knowledge. We all come together to share knowledge and to grow. That's exactly the digital syndicate. We show each other how to make more money in business. I'm not just teaching you like some guru. We have other gurus, right, that have done things that are sharing experiences to help you make more money. There's no perfect way to do this. But we also expose the truth of reality. And that's why it's worth the money. Ambitious, awake individuals are linking up. They're sharing intel and they're pushing boundaries. We have our own circles. Call it the syndicate, guys. Call it whatever, where we dive deeper into these tactics and live by them. If you're ready to truly commit, there's an inner tier to all of this, a level where we break things down step by step and support each other. Again, it's not free. Nothing's free, but ignorance is free. Fully yours. You had it before you came here. And you can start to see now how painful it is to start opening your fucking eyes because you can't go back. Because now you're blessed with the curse of being awake. Consider it an investment in the most important asset, your mind and your skill set. We keep it accessible. For example, our entry syndicate tier costs exactly about what you'd expect to spend on a fancy dinner in the month. And you will be able to afford that if you're inside. But it's delivering knowledge that can change the trajectory of your entire fucking life. Why would I not charge what I charge? For the truly dedicated, there's even higher levels. You might hear whispers of the ghost tier, ultra exclusive mentorship for those building empires. The doors will open on that in due time if you're proven ready first. But regardless of that, let's just start simple. There's a free community. You have plenty to act on right now from what you've learned if you want to do that. Most people will hear something like this and do nothing, though. A few will take it to heart and start making moves. Maybe those thoughts are going through your head right now. Is this guy serious? Can I trust him? Is he a guru? Is he a scam? I'm going to let you do the research for yourself, and I will confidently stand behind the 5-star reviews that are presented in front of you. Even small moves, guys. If you decide to never listen to me again, just open an LLC, read up on a second passport, reach out to potential mentors. Those few will see a massive difference in the next 5, 10, or 20 years. It's not overnight. And the people telling you that you get rich overnight are lying. It'll probably at the very minimum be 2 to 3 months if you're in the syndicate and you're paying for that. But if you try to do it on your own, right, you don't get the benefit of paying to shorten the time. It's going to take a few years. It took me a few years because I didn't have the syndicate. Just take one idea, just one, and execute it this week. Prove to yourself that you're not just a consumer of information, but a doer. That action will breed confidence and momentum will build. So the vault door is, guys, wide open right now. You peeked inside the elite's playbook. What happens next is up to you. Will you step out of the comfortable illusions and step into your own power? The syndicate, the digital syndicate, this brotherhood of the awake will be here. Either way, we're going to be doing our thing. The train is moving. You can hop on or just watch it pass by, just like this day, this moment, other parts of your life that you can't take back. You can take back money. The world is changing, my friend. The old promises of the system are breaking down, and those hidden structures of wealth are now more important than ever. Now you know about them. So use this knowledge, arm yourself with it, and remember, the game only stays rigged if you stay in your place. So don't. Stay lethal, stay intelligent, stay sovereign. Your move now. I'll see you guys later.